CATA TV.
Thank you.
And I understand that you just completed a survey on litigation in the high-tech industry. Can you tell us a bit about what you found out?
Well, there's some very interesting statistics that came out of it, John. We did the survey in December of 2007, and we got back quite a high number of responses. It was in the 90s in terms of the survey that came back. But what was more interesting was some of the data that came out of it. Obviously, given what we do, we know that people get in lawsuits. But what we discovered is out of the people who responded to this particular survey, over 67% had been engaged in more than one lawsuit in the last 3 years. Now that number is kind of significant, but what makes it really significant is that when we asked them to quantify the rough amount of fees, this is just fees paid. This has nothing to do with the amount of management time wasted or anything like that, but the amount of fees that had been paid in that time period was over $17 million. So pretty significant numbers. And I think, we were really looking at this from the point of view of saying, is there a smarter or better way to do it? And so what we looked at was to say, well, how much impact did it have on your business? And 56% of the respondents said it had a substantial impact on their business. And then we thought, well, okay, when you translate that impact, how did it manifest itself? 80% of the people terminated their business relationship as a result of the lawsuit. Those are pretty significant numbers.
Well, I think that's a major problem for the industry. So in looking at the findings, have you come up with some remedies, perhaps some new ways of addressing these concerns?
Well, one of the things that we've determined is that, a lot of people are driving towards what's called a mediation structure, and I think that's only part of it. There's that famous saying is that if the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Not everything can be resolved by mediation. Not everything should be resolved by mediation. So what we've been looking at is to help the CATA membership put together what we call a toolkit of conflict management tools. So the real goal that you aim for, and I think this survey reinforces it, is that you aim to settle these disputes early and settle them fast, because that's how you keep the cost down.
So what does that toolkit look like? Well, what are the parts?
Well, you would have things that would, for instance, you have a range of items that would include an early dispute system. In other words, an early notification, an early warning system, in effect, that there's a problem. The other thing that we find is that, you go back to Einstein's definition of insanity, which is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Well, clearly, if you have a problem that's developed, in many cases, what started out as potentially a business problem, or actually started out as a personal conflict, develops into a business conflict. So we encourage people to, at that stage, go into this early complaint system where you pull the dispute up one level, so that the people who are sort of butting heads for whatever reason are basically given a chill out, while somebody more senior who's got some sense of the importance of the relationship can perhaps deal with the resolution. That's one alternative. Another alternative is mediation. Another alternative, quite frankly, is to look at bringing in what I would call mutual fact-finding, a joint fact-finding exercise, so that you can actually figure out what it is you're arguing about. Because one of the things we do know as lawyers is that as soon as somebody decides to pull a gun, everybody, you can hear the rifles sort of loading all around the room, right? As everybody brackets a chamber, puts a bullet in the chamber, and away you go. So one of the things that you want to look at is to say, let's get everybody to cool down. Let's actually find out what the problem is, as opposed to stacking up bargaining chips that you're then going to use in this negotiation, which is the standard style. What you're really trying to do is to say, no, let's get to the problem quickly, let's solve the problem quickly, before we have a chance to build up too much heat.
And I understand that one of the ways you're going to try to create that transparency is the guide that you're developing. and I believe also you were looking at some type of a private online forum of best practices. Can you tell us about those tools?
Yeah. What we've done, and this is obviously in consultation with your people, is we've put together a guide which gives people some sense as to what these tools look like, how they can be used, what kind of circumstance they're in. And then the other thing that we've done is we've actually looked at creating a structure within CANA so that people can participate actively in both understanding these tools, but as well having a methodology to practice with them and develop best practices so they can isolate what works for them in their circumstance. And the interesting thing about it, John, is that these tools can apply internally and externally. So you can build them into your contracts, but you can also build them into your HR practices. And you can actually build them into some of the ways you manage at the board. It's all designed, not to say that everybody has to get along, because that's not the reality of life. What it does do, though, is it focuses on managing conflict in a positive way. Because conflict, in fact, is one of those things that engenders creativity. So positive management of conflict can create resolution, can create ideas. Some people are very uncomfortable articulating a position and it comes out as conflictual, when in fact all they're really looking for is a solution. What we're trying to do is to give you this basket of tools and then a forum in which you can exchange comments on that basket of tools and also learn how to use them. And to do that, we will be assembling, in fact we've already got a preliminary list of some real leading people in terms of this area. And this is, I think, what will be a benefit, because realistically speaking, if 80% of the business relationships are terminated because of a lawsuit, in an economy the size of Canada, you're going to run out of business partners in a hell of a hurry with that kind of failure rate.
Well, excellent initiative. I think we've heard from Paul Labarge today, the power of doing good survey work and quantifying a significant problem on litigation. We've heard some very interesting approaches, so the industry can look forward to a guidebook. It can help evolve its best practices, and in the end, I think that $17 million is going to get much, much smaller. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.